So we have, but we watch and see. And the point is, what a relief actually to have smart, flexible-minded people in these positions, and we're going to need all of the smartness and all the flexibility we can come up with.
Shall we move a bit to the economy? You are, after all, here because of economic issues. I got a question here from somebody. Most questions you have written are so long, I have hardly the time to read them. Here's one. Obama implies a shift from monetary to Keynesian economics. Is it the correct remedy in a globalized world economy with different economic regimes?
All right. I'm not sure that we really have different economic regimes. That's one of the things that we all, there's been a great convergence. Look, all right, economic crisis. The key fact right now is that monetary policy, we've spent the last 25 years living in an age when central bankers bore all of the burden for stabilizing the economy, where you could always count on Paul Volcker or Alan Greenspan or Ben Bernanke or Jean-Claude Trichet to do the job. If the economy is sliding into recession, they cut interest rates, they bring you back out again. The possibility that monetary policy, and this is economics by technocrats, not by elected politicians. We took it for granted that the technocrats could always do the job. There was the case of Japan in the 1990s, where the technocrats, where the Bank of Japan cut interest rates all the way to zero, and it wasn't enough. And that worried some people. And actually, very specifically, there was a group of people at Princeton University who got worried by the Japanese example. So that would have been, particularly, it was me and Lars Svensson, who's back at the Riksbank here now, and a guy by the name of Ben Bernanke. We're all very worried by the Japanese experience. But the thing is the point is that has happened now. Monetary policy is, at least in its conventional form, is at its limits. Bernanke has cut. It's complicated, but effectively, the interest rates over which the Fed has the greatest influence are zero. Right, the rate on Treasury bills is zero. The ECB will be in the same place very soon. I think the Riksbank will be in the same place very soon, which means that we have nothing left as a straightforward policy except a lot of fiscal stimulus, the kind of thing that we did in the 1930s. Again, it's that New Deal 1930s parallel. The reason that we had to have the Works Progress Administration, which at its peak employed 5 million Americans, building bridges, repairing roads, building schools, was because the interest rate on 3-month Treasury bills was 0.14%, and there was nothing more you could do to bring interest rates down. As of last time I looked, the interest rate on 3-month U.S. Treasury bills right now is 0.005%. What? Well, at the moment plus, but it was minus briefly for a couple of days ago. So we're basically at limits. So there's not Keynesian. Keynes is what we got, and we need more of it.
I have a quote here. We've been accustomed to hearing economists say that politicians need to be kept at bay because as soon as you leave politicians alone, they will reduce taxes and increase benefits, and the country will go nuts. But last week, or a few weeks ago, I read in your column, I'm going to read here. My advice to the Obama people is, figure out how much help they think the economy needs, then add 50%. It's much better in a depressed economy to err on the side of too much stimulus than on the side of too little. I never ever heard an economist advise like that. Maybe it's the first time, maybe it's about time, but in my generation, economists always were on the other side.
That's right, and we're if we get out of this, I'll be on the other side myself, but not now.
Well, actually, in preparing for this, I repeated an old book of yours called Peddling Prosperity, and there you advocated tightening of monetary policy and tightening of the budget policy.
Right.
Fiscal tightening. So I thought maybe I should read this to you and say what you say now, but I realized the situation was different with Bush death.
Yeah, look, all right, let me just be an analytical economist here for a moment, not really, but just to say, we are now, this is a weird situation. It's a situation that is a once in 3 generations situation. Hopefully, right. And so, as I've been saying, this is not your father's recession. This is your grandfather's recession. This is a situation like that of the 1930s, where the conventional policy has lost all traction. And when you're in that kind of situation, many of the usual rules don't apply. It's kind of an Alice in Wonderland world where everything goes the reverse of where you think it would be. So thrift, higher personal savings, is really bad for the economy. Government fiscal responsibility is really bad for the economy. We unfortunately, right now, what we need is for people to spend more at all levels, and simply it can't. It means that our normal notions of fiscal responsibility are all wrong. That in fact the only responsible thing to do is to run big deficits. And this is this is at the core of a lot of the confusion we're having right now. So my latest I'm already engaged in a long distance argument with the German finance minister, who wants to be responsible in his notion of responsibility.
But all economists for 100 years told him to, ever since the 20s, at least in Germany.
Well, that's the problem.
Are the economists the problem?
No, it's.
Well, you say the technocrats put us here. I mean, the technocrats were in charge of monetary policy. They were in charge of the banks. They were in charge of the regulation of banks.
Not really. The story about the banks, how did that happen? How did we get so vulnerable? It was not really the technocrats who did that, although they certainly didn't speak up against what was happening. What happened was that the financial system evolved from the old. We had a well-controlled system after the 30s. The system evolved. It evolved partly as a way of essentially innovating around the financial regulations. In any case, it evolved. There was no effort to extend regulation to cover this new system. So as more and more of the financial system was outside the capital requirements, the guarantees, nothing was done about it. To some extent, I guess we'd call Alan Greenspan a technocrat. He stood against any further regulation, but most importantly, the politicians didn't like it because they believed increasingly in an ideology that said that the market is always right.
Did they believe it, or was it that they needed the campaign donors to be happy?
I think that's a clarity of distinction that doesn't exist in real life. Making your wealthy donors happy and serving your vision of the public interest have a tendency to converge. Or it's another the American author Upton Sinclair once said it's very difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on his not understanding it. So there's a strong aspect of what can I say? But there was a real ideology as well, and so we did. So there's a moment from the past 8 years. There's a moment when in 2003 there was a photo opportunity involving bank regulators from the Bush administration, a whole bunch of them, and they. This was, as we now know, 2003 was the moment when the housing bubble was really starting to inflate out of control. And they held a photo opportunity where they had stacks of regulations, and they brought pruning shears, tree shears, cut up the stacks of regulation, except for one who brought a chainsaw. And so you can actually see the photo of this occasion. So this was a political thing. These were political appointees following the guidance of their administration, and they were eager to reduce the small amount of regulation we already had on the financial system.